So here we go, after the Pixel 9 Pro, go check out that video if you haven't already, we have the baseline Pixel 9. How good is it though? Well, let's have a little chat. So the Pixel 9 doesn't just subtly take on a new design of the previous years in a way that the 8 and the 7 did before. In those iterative adjustments, the Pixel series slowly refined a design that Google largely wanted to stick to. The Pixel 9 takes that big step towards a more modern, a more rigid design. And there's no getting away from the fact that there's going to be iPhone comparisons here, but as a personal heavy iPhone critic, I have to say I think it's actually better than I ever expected it to be. Take for instance the side rails of the phone. They're flat around the entire device, but where the aluminium meets that Gorilla Glass Victus 2 glass on the front and the back, the metal is slightly radiused. This is simply for the benefit of the user and just makes it more comfortable. It almost defies your brain as well because the Pixel 9 is actually more comfortable in the hand than the Pixel 9 without a case. The rounded edges were nice on the predecessor, but they were hard to maintain a grip in iffy circumstances. Obviously a case will fix that, and I know 99% of you out there will use a case, so it's not a problem anyway. I'm trying hard to put it into words, but in almost every way the Pixel 9 feels more high-end, almost like the design was taken a little bit more seriously than its predecessors. The matte aluminium doesn't fog with your natural oils of your skin, and it certainly doesn't reflect the edges of the camera island. Additionally, the camera setup looks a lot more minimal, and it doesn't feel out of place here. It's solid, and it's really built with purpose. Even the buttons on the side feel clickier, which again goes a long way in playing up that feeling, or that leveling up feeling of the phone. And compared to the Pixel 9 Pro and the Pro XL, there really isn't much of a difference in superficial hardware. In fact, the Pixel 9 and 9 Pro can use the same cases, which I really do applaud from Google, and it cements the idea that the phones are visually identical and part of that same design language. Though the non-Pro versions in recent past years have been considered a small phone, I really think the base, and by extension the Pro, is that Goldilocks size for most people. Colour-wise, the Pixel 9 is the most vibrant version of the series this year. It offers the generic obsidian and porcelain colours, and I will say Google nailed these by the way, but they also offer that peony and wintergreen. The two latter options are vibrant, and I actually wouldn't be mad if I were using that peony version, I must admit. The wintergreen is a little too light for most people, I'm going to probably put it out there, but it is an option that I will be looking at for my own personal unit. I think one of the only active dislikes I've come across with the Pixel 9 is the display, and even then that's definitely an exaggeration on my part, as the Pixel 9 houses an Actua display that comes in at just over 1080p. In 2024, I think with that $100 price bump over its predecessor, it doesn't really feel like enough. Considering the phone costs just under $800, I really would have liked to see the equivalent of 1440p, even in the base model, particularly because there's devices like the OnePlus 12R, which I think is one of the best displays under that price tag, and it really cements that Google just needs to up things a little bit more if they're going to add extra to the price tag. Again, it's nitpicking because I will say the Pixel 9's 2700 nit capable Actua display is still solid, but even so, there are a few things to note regarding this panel's quality as a whole, bearing in mind that this is Google's cheapest phone in the Pixel 9 lineup. Firstly, the panel does have slightly thicker bezels, at least they look and feel bigger compared to the previous model. That may be because they're uniform throughout the entire display and the entire edges of the display, a large point of contention which was on the Pixel 8 series last year. The punch-hole camera also feels like it's bigger as well. Not the camera itself, but the black circular bezel around it. That will go unnoticed over a short period of time, but it is something that felt immediately different in this new version. One major bonus though is that the optical sensor is gone. It's been replaced with an ultrasonic sensor, similar to what Samsung uses in its own devices. The switch is immediately noticeable, although with the phone being small, I will say I found, or at least personally I found hitting the right spot as often was a little bit more difficult because the Pixel 8 Pro is ingrained in my muscle memory, at least the positioning of that optical sensor. So Google built the Pixel 9 around the Tensor G4 chip, which is yet another iteration, and it leans even more heavily into AI competence rather than raw power. That means benchmark nerds need not apply. You should go out and get something else if you do want something that tops the charts. This is nowhere near it, and I don't think Google's going to change that, at least for a little while. I will say the SoC does a fine job of running Android 14. Yes, you heard me correctly, the Pixel 9 does not launch with Android 14 as it was initially expected. Still, the new processor does a great job of ensuring everything runs smoothly throughout the day. To be honest, I will say it feels a tad faster at loading apps, but almost identical to the Pixel 8 series most of the time. Here's something I often haven't thought when using the Pixel 9. I did not think if only Google went with a Snapdragon chip. And I think if you know that going in, it's hard to get mad at its performance output. Maybe it's the extra 4GB of RAM, but I haven't seen stutters, lag or slowdowns in over a week of daily usage. Many of the AI functions that Google launched with the Pixel 9 run relatively smoothly here. Take Gemini Live for example. It's the newest way to communicate with Gemini that offers a selection of natural voices, maybe too natural. Instead of text-based prompts, you can speak to Gemini like you would another human. This back and forth method is fun to play around with and it works well on the Pixel 9. I just think it needs a little bit of refinement as sometimes the information it spits out, not quite right, and it also has problems with interruptions and the mic can be a little bit sensitive. These little teething problems aside, the new implementation of Gemini is promising and a lot more inviting than simply typing a response. At least in its early stages, I've found it has some limitations. Not being able to access things like your emails or other integrations, and if you do, sometimes the success rate is low. This is all fixable through OTA or server-side updates, so it isn't something I consider to be the fault of the Pixel 9, the device itself. It's more so Gemini and its backend probably. So the Pixel 9 is hands down the weakest in one of the three main phones this year in terms of its camera capabilities. That sounds like a negative, but it actually really isn't. You know the deal here, the main sensor comes in at 50 megapixels while the ultra-wide takes a massive upgrade to 48 megapixels from 12 on last year's version. For normal shots, including portraits and anything a little constrained, you're getting the same camera as the Pixel 8 though when using that main sensor. For the ultra-wide, however, it's a big upgrade and it makes a huge difference. For instance, macro shots that you can get here are levels above, as well as the everyday wide angles that you look for in landscape photography and group shots. It's just another fantastic exercise in image processing from Google. Again, if a phone needs anything to stand out, it is a good camera. The Pixel 9 excels in that category so long as you don't need or want telephoto capabilities. If you do consider that an important aspect, then the Pro version with its 48 megapixel telephoto is something you will need to look at. Adding utility to this camera system, Google is also introducing a new feature that is available on the Pixel 9 called Add Me. This essentially allows you to take group shots without leaving anybody out. It's just two photos stitched together and AI parses this and makes sure it looks. Google's Reimagine is a more powerful precision tool in Magic Editor that has been introduced with the Pixel 9 as well. It can take entire subjects or scenes and reimagine them as something else completely. For instance, a road can be turned into a river, or the background of your photo with your dog can be turned into a field of flowers. It's a really neat tool, but it might not be ideal for everybody out there. And that said, it means you are having to edit images you've already taken. Now, I'm on the fence with it, but I do think it's a nice option, and a lot of people will have a great deal of utility with this function. One of the biggest problems with the Pixel 9 though is the video options, as this does lack a little bit of utility compared to the rest of the 9 series. You can record at 4K 60 FPS and the quality is solid, but you are going to miss out on a lot of functions like super res zoom up to 20x with video boost, 8K 30 FPS with video boost, and a few others thrown in. So if you want video, again, you're going to have to look towards that Pro model. With a 4700 mAh cell, the Pixel 9 beats its successor by quite a margin, and on paper that extra bit of power doesn't guarantee much better performance. Essentially, I was expecting a slight increase in efficiency with an all-day battery. I still felt I needed to be conscious of, as with any Pixel that has been the case. Instead, what I actually am seeing is a heavy increase in efficiency with a battery that I personally struggle to kill within 24 hours. With around 4 to 6 hours of general usage during a normal 24-hour period, I'm seeing 40 to 35% or higher when I go to bed at night, and that exceeds my expectations by quite a large margin. As long as the charger is nearby though, I think the new fast charging capabilities do allow the Pixel 9 to get up to around 50% in less than 30 minutes, and that has been the case in my own testing. This still isn't perfect, but it is a really important upgrade. The thing is, I'm reluctant to call this battery excellent. I think it's consistent, and that could likely have a lot to do with the Tensor G4's improved ability to handle specific on-device tasks. In any case, the upgrade is tangible, and I'm genuinely been surprised at how well the Pixel 9 has lasted each day when I've put it through its paces. It's not the best out there, it's not the worst, it's somewhere towards the upper middle, if that makes sense. So to wrap up, here's the lowdown. At $799, it's $100 more than last year's base model. It's also only $200 away from that Pro tier, which has the same body and internal upgrades that I personally still think are worth it if you can stomach that extra price increase. I think if I were ignorant of those versions, the Pro and the Pro XL, and thought this was the only Google phone released this year, I'd just about be satisfied, or I'd be pretty happy with the purchase. No, it doesn't have that telephoto lens, and it doesn't come with a little more RAM as well, but I think that's totally okay. I've been saying this for years now, but the base model for the majority of users out there, the Pixel 9 and most base model Pixels are going to be good enough and powerful enough for those people. Tensor G4 puts in the work, and I think Android 14, disappointing it's not 15, performs very well on this device. That doesn't even take into account the body change which the series went through, which I do begrudgingly appreciate, at least from a design standpoint. Now, if you're on the fence about upgrading, know that none of these changes are groundbreaking, and a lot of software releases will likely still make their way to your phones in future. This is a refinement, not an upgrade. It's the theme of 2024. I think this device is a fine. It's a 6.5 or 7 out of 10. It's good for some, but not for all. And I think that's where the Pro comes into view. I think the Pro has a lot more enticing aspects to it, and that size as well, to really kind of like wet the whistle, if that makes sense. If you are looking at a Pixel 9 though, this is a great phone. Some really good trading values and trading options out there before pre-order, and I'm sure there will be later down the line when there's discounts. It's a good phone. It's not the best entry-level Pixel model in terms of its actual, how it's affecting the market, but I'm impressed with it. It's a really solid option. I want to know what you think though. What do you think of the Pixel 9? Are you looking at the Pro tier and above, like a lot of people seem to be doing this time around? Or are you holding out and hoping to see that Pixel 10 is going to bring some big changes to the table? I'm really interested to hear what you think, so let me know in the comment sections below. I also want to say thanks as well to our channel members on screen now. You're the lifeblood of this channel and we really love you. But after all, thanks for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this Pixel 9 review, and I will speak to you later.